Welcome to the Mum CEO podcast. I'm your host, Esther Roach. Join me as we explore the dynamic intersection of motherhood and entrepreneurship. From the challenges to the triumphs, we're here to unravel it all. Get ready for insightful conversations, practical wisdom, and a whole lot of inspiration. Let's embark on this empowering journey together. Hello and welcome to the Mum CEO podcast. I'm your host, Esther Roche, and today I'm joined by Jackie Monk, who is an HR consultant and a fused glass artist. Hello, Jackie, and welcome to the show.
Hi, Esther. Thank you very much for having me today.
No, you're very welcome. So would you like to introduce yourself to the audience, please?
Yeah, of course. So, I've been through a few changes in the last few years from a career point of view. My background is HR. So I've worked in HR for many, many years, all with one company, very large, very corporate. So when I became a mum, I was already well immersed in corporate life and traveling all over the country as an HR manager. Um, then in 2020, the world changed for all of us, and I was no exception. So I was made redundant from that company and was left thinking, okay, what do I do with my life now? Had absolutely no plans to start my own business. I didn't think I was capable of running my own business. I had been, I had been cocooned in corporate life for many years, and it's funny, you don't know what you're capable of until the time comes where you kind of have to just branch out. So I started my own HR consultancy, expecting to keep it very small, which I have done deliberately. But I also took the plunge with my hobby, which is glassmaking, and was just a bit of a creative outlet, which I didn't get enough time to do really in corporate life. But I got all excited when I got made redundant and bought myself a kiln, and my brilliant husband set me up with a bit of a home studio, and I started making glass. And I made so much glass, I thought, well, I probably ought to try and sell some of this, which I did. And fast forward 3 years, I now have a fused glass business as well that I run from home. So a nice mix, really, of creative and business, HR business.
Oh, fantastic. I have seen your glass, and I must say you have some exceptional pieces of glass that you do. So, it's really, really interesting that you obviously took that hobby and made something of it. Um, Obviously, you were in this long corporate career for well, so many years. How did that change, basically? How did the change impact your life, basically, and the journey of being a mum, when you stopped your corporate career and then started your businesses? How has it impacted you now?
Yeah, it's so much better now. And I wouldn't have said that. If I look back, I worked for a brilliant company. I had lots of opportunities. I did a lot of learning. I grew, but I was also in a fairly pressured role. Frontline HR is can be quite challenging and difficult. And I had a really big remit. I was responsible for about 1,400 employees in 24 different sites all over the country. So I traveled an awful lot. And I think back now to how I managed that being a mum. Um, it's amazing, isn't it? How you just make things work when you have to make things work. But it was just my husband and I only have one child, my daughter, so I guess less challenging than it is for many parents. But we didn't have a support network around us. We didn't have grandparents, aunties, and uncles. There was nobody. It was just us. So you build a network of friends, other mums and dads to kind of help you in those times where you really need it. But yeah, my daughter really got used to being in nursery from a very, very young age, and had some very long days there. So the change when I then started running my own businesses, and the flexibility I have now is just fantastic. My daughter's just doing her GCSEs now, she's 16, and I think back to when she was very young, and I feel, and I've spoken to other mums who've said the same thing actually, that I don't know if it's a difference between girls and boys, I don't know, but I feel that my daughter needs me more now
Mhm.
in terms of my time and my energy and being able to talk with me than she did when she was really tiny. And I used to worry about her being in nursery and not spending enough time with her. And I wish I could say to myself back then, it's fine, actually, as long as the time you have with her is good and there's quality and there's love and there's attention, the hours you put in don't matter as much. It is very much about the quality of the time you spend together, I think. And I know that's a cliche, but yeah, corporate life took me away from her an awful lot, but I've always prioritized being a mum. It's always been very important to me. So I was always there when I needed to be, but there was a cost. There was a real cost attached to me personally, in terms of the time and the energy, those white knuckle rides that you have, journeys you have back down the M6 when you have 5 minutes to get back to the nursery before it closes. Um, lots of people will identify with that, I'm sure, but there was plenty of that.
Mhm.
And yeah, I wouldn't go back. I have to say the time I have with my daughter now, because I work for myself and I prioritize the time that I'm available to her. I can just be more flexible. So yeah, I'm kind of really glad that it happened when it did,
Mm.
4 years ago, because I really feel that these teenage years has allowed me to just be with her when she's needed me.
No, you are right on that, and I know the mom guilt can get to you a lot. So as you know, I'm a mom of many, and what you're saying is completely, it is true. When they're little, they do need you and everything, but it's quite different when you get to these stages. Like now, you've got the GCSEs going on, and I found that with my two older ones, certainly because when they were going through their exams, you need more time to actually help them with all the various things that are going on, and it's a lot of work for them to sort of take on, isn't it?
It really is, and it's the emotional load for them. As they're getting older, they are having to negotiate life in a much more independent way, and they need to be able to talk about that.
Mm.
When your children are tiny, they go everywhere with you or with another adult. Their life is really mapped out for them and they don't have many decisions to make. I think as our teenagers get older and move towards adulthood, they're testing themselves so much more, and they're checking out their own boundaries and having to make a lot more decisions about what they're doing and who they're doing it with and where they're going, and they need to be able to bounce that, I think, off parents or carers or other adults that are around them that they can actually talk to. Um, so yeah, I again, I would just keep saying it's quality over quantity when it comes to spending time with my daughter. I know that I can pick her up from school, and if I do the school run and I drive her home, that 20-minute drive home, she downloads. And I get so much from her about her day, what mood she's in, what she's worried about, what she's really loved, what's made her laugh that day. We have that time. She might then come in and I'm back out in the studio or back on my laptop working, and she'll then go off for her athletics training. We might not spend much time together then for a few hours, but we connected in that time. We had that time, and she knew that she could, if there's anything that was bothering her, she could talk to me about it. So it's finding those moments in your day where they know they can share if they need to.
No, absolutely. And it's like you mentioned, all those things about knowing their mood and everything, because I notice a difference as well from, when especially the first two, when they were older, they pretty much lived with the childminder. And that was my situation at that point in time. And I see the difference with my younger ones now when, when I go to pick them up from school, I know something is wrong or something has happened, and you can deal with it. Whereas before, the child mind has dealt with everything. You don't even know that something has happened because it's been and gone, but you're not aware of all these little things, which I think is quite important as they get older as well, because you can talk to them and you can help them, and the emotional side is quite intense because they need that support from us. You mentioned something at the start of the conversation that when you started the business, obviously, one, you didn't know you were going to start a business, but you said you didn't think you were good enough. I want to dig more into that not being good enough. Why did you feel like that?
I didn't know where to start was part of it. I'm naturally introvert, and so the thought of going into a room full of complete strangers and networking and trying to build some new contacts was terrifying to me. I'm very lucky that I started my business during the lockdown period because everything was online. Um, and I was still intimidated going on a Zoom call, but at least I was at home and it was for an hour, and then I could turn my laptop off and yeah, and kind of recover from that. So I think it was a bit of a combination of I had worked in a really male dominated um high D people kind of the environment. I was in my corporate life, I was in the motor trade. It was very male dominated, and I was in awe of the people that were running these very, very successful multi-million pound businesses, but I felt a million miles away from them in terms of who they were, what they delivered, their personalities. I just felt that's not me. And
Mm,
I didn't see any other model at that time in terms of how you could run a business on your own terms and that you didn't have to be aggressive, dynamic,
mm,
really fast moving, um, relentless in terms of how you pursue the next sale and so on. I'm not that person.
mm,
And it's not until you start to get involved with smaller businesses and start to network and particularly networking with other women and just saying that, oh my goodness, we're all completely different, but as long as you are, I didn't think I could be myself running a business. I didn't think I could be authentic. I thought I'd have to invent a different persona because that's what I felt I'd done in corporate life. In
mm,
order to fit in corporate life, I had invented a persona that fitted in, and I didn't know how to take that out and become myself and be able to run a successful business. And it's taken me time to now take myself to HR clients as me instead of as a representative of some other organization with that organization's culture.
mm,
I don't know if that makes sense, but it was really a case of trying to find my own voice and have the confidence to say, I know my stuff. I know HR. I know I can deliver a good service to people. It's how I deliver that as me instead of as this person that I had pretended to be for many years in a corporate life. So I think that was what was really scaring me, along with having the confidence to network
mhm,
and meet new people as an introvert. That's really, really challenging. Um, and just the nuts and bolts. I didn't know how to set up a website. I didn't know how to do my own accounts. I didn't know how to do marketing. I hadn't really been proactive on LinkedIn. All those things that you need to get your head around as a business owner. Of course, it all comes to you and you find the right people to talk to help you, but it's really daunting when you first start out.
And what bit of advice would you have for somebody else who's got those doubts and those fears and worries about, obviously, it could be even changing careers or just starting something for themselves?
Yeah, I think I have to be honest because I wasn't brave. I was forced into the situation I was in. And I can remember the day that I was given the news that I was going to be made redundant, and I was really upset. But I remember saying to my husband, I have no idea what I'm going to do, but I want to know that I'm going to look back on this in 12 months' time and say that was the best thing that ever happened to me.
Mhm.
I was really determined that something good was going to come out of it. And I've always given advice to people in the past who are thinking of pivoting in their career or making some really major changes. Don't run away, go towards something positively. Don't leave something just because it's not right for you anymore. Go towards something because it's what you really want. And I think if you already know in your heart that there's a better place for you to be, that you have a new career waiting for you somewhere, if you know that that's what you want, you will find the energy. You will just find the energy and you will find the people to help you to do it. And I know it's a real cliche to say if I can do it, anybody can do it. But I really believe that because there is nothing special about me in terms of my skill set and my experience. I knew nothing about running my own business, and now I run two. And I've not suddenly changed personality. I'm still the same person that I was, and I still have the same insecurities that I always had. But I wanted to do it. And
Mm.
if you want to do it, you will find a way. And then it's about networking and finding the right people. And I was really lucky that I found the right networking groups to go to and had the courage to go and find those people, because that's where the help comes from.
Yeah.
That's where all the expertise is when you haven't got it yourself. And that's where the cuddles come from when you have a day where you need a virtual cuddle from somebody because you're just really struggling.
So Jackie, having a look at obviously, you being a mum, you became a mum at a later stage, and that wouldn't, that probably wasn't the easiest of things to obviously cope with that, as well as all the other things that were happening to you. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so I was given the really lovely term by the medical profession of geriatric mum, which always makes you feel great. So, so yes, I had Olivia when I was 40, so that is considered old in medical terms. I certainly didn't feel it at the time. It was the right time for me to be having a child. And so, no regrets at all from that point of view. It was a difficult time when I had Olivia because at the same time, my mum was terminally ill.
Mm.
So my mum passed away the day before my daughter's first birthday.
Mhm.
So I spent my maternity leave learning to be a new mum at the age of 40, but also nursing my own mum at that time. So it was backwards and forwards to hospitals, hospice, care homes, and so on during that time, and making some pretty difficult decisions. The joy was that I had my daughter through all of that, and she was just so gorgeous to come home to during all of those difficult days. But it was definitely um, it was definitely overwhelming at times, I will say. And as a person who's always suffered a little bit from anxiety, it was. I look back now and see that that was quite a triggering time for me because all of a sudden I felt that I had a huge amount of responsibility to my new child and all those decisions you have to make as a new mum, and the responsibility of having a new life to look after. And when that's brand new, it's pretty scary. Um, but at the same time, juggling that with the decisions that I was having to make, for my mum as well. So, yeah, it was quite a challenging time. But then, the years of having Olivia settled and were fine, but then along came some health issues for myself. So I was diagnosed with high blood pressure before I had my daughter.
Mm.
Strangely, my blood pressure settled during my pregnancy. So, they had concerns about me being, a high risk pregnancy, but I was absolutely fine. I did end up having a C-section, which wasn't great, but Generally speaking, the pregnancy itself was absolutely fine, but the high blood pressure did return some years later, and I was then diagnosed with thyroid disease in 2019. So there's been quite a few challenges along the way, and of course, being made redundant then in 2020, um, I started my two new businesses with those health conditions that I was trying to manage. You then throw menopause into the pot,
Oh gosh.
and the symptoms of menopause and thyroid disease are actually quite similar. So it's really tricky to know what it is that's making you feel how you're feeling. So that has been a really long journey for me. And as an awful lot of women will testify, the NHS support for menopause can be really um, not great,
Yeah.
depending on, who you are, where you live, how lucky you get. Everybody I've spoken to has been helpful, but just getting in front of somebody to talk to somebody about menopause can be really tricky. So I've ended up going to a private clinic to get some support with that. And I've also reached out to some thyroid experts, nutritionalists, and so on to help me along the way. I've definitely needed to be really proactive with my health. And I think a lot of women will say the same thing because the help doesn't come to you. But when you're running your own business and you've got a family to look after, you just can't afford the downtime, can you? You need to find a way of getting yourself back on track and fit and able. And I've had some periods of just massive fatigue, and definitely an increase in anxiety since I've been menopausal, and the thyroid disease hasn't helped that. So yeah, physical challenges, mental health challenges along the way, and in all honesty, I would say that in terms of my businesses, I could have probably progressed them more
Mhm.
had I not had the health issues that I've been dealing with over the last 3 years.
Mhm.
I could have made more money. I could have made more glass and sold more glass. I could have acquired more HR clients by now. But I'm of an age where I'm understanding that there's got to be balance in life. And I'm very realistic about what I want to achieve for my businesses. And one of the dangers sometimes with networking and surrounding yourself by absolutely brilliant, brilliant people like you, is that they can appear to be really successful and you can start to compare yourself and you can start to benchmark and think, I'm just not doing as much. They seem to be flying. They're making huge connections everywhere, and they've got loads of connections and loads of clients now. So it's very easy to compare yourself. And I've had to sit back from that and say, now, hang on a minute. This is my journey. It's not anybody else's. It's mine. And I have my family dynamics. I have my health dynamics and my businesses that I have to fit together into some kind of jigsaw that works for me.
Mhm.
And it's having that realization and being a little bit more realistic about what you want from yourself and from your business. That's when I think you can start to relax a little bit and
Mhm.
just say, okay, I do not want to be the most successful HR consultant in the world ever. I want to be a really good one. I
Mhm.
want my clients to think I'm doing a fantastic job for them and to trust me and to work with me. But however many those clients are, as long as I'm paying my bills, I'm not bothered. I don't care. And I'm the same with my glass work now. It's about, I want to make really nice pieces of glass that my customers are really happy with and they love.
Mhm.
Um, but if I don't get sales every day, then I'm really not worried about that.
Mhm.
So it's really just, I think you have to just sit back and say, what are all the different facets of my life that I've got to fit together? What do I want for each of them? Because nothing is more important to me than being a good mum. That comes before absolutely anything else. And if I feel that I'm giving my daughter what she needs and
Mhm.
I'm looking after my health and I'm running successful enough businesses. And that's the
Mhm.
marker for me. Is it successful enough? yes, it is, then that's good enough for me.
Yeah, and it's really important. You've touched on so many things that I would like to talk about. But I'm only going to pick on some of those things. And one of the things you've mentioned is obviously about authenticity, and I think that is so important. You touched on that with your corporate life, because you become the voice of the company, and you've had to discover and be you and be yourself. And I think that's a very important thing to have. It's an important quality to have, but having said that, it's also the quality of the work that you're producing rather than the quantity. And that is something that I stick with as well. And also remembering that success looks different for everybody. So it's not a one size fits all, is it?
It really isn't. It really isn't. And yeah, it's letting go of expectations that you think you should have, and think about what you really want and
Mm,
what you really need. And that, as I said before, that was a challenge for me, because my the representation of success in my corporate life
mm,
was something that not only felt unachievable for me, but actually wasn't what I wanted.
yeah.
When I look at the people who are successful and thriving and enjoying that world, brilliant, good on them. They're very successful, but actually, I didn't want that life.
Mm,
And I think, looking back now, that was what was really challenging for me when I thought about running my own business, because that was the only model I'd seen. And I thought, well, if I want to be a business owner, then I've got to be that kind of person, and I've got to live that life, and it's got to be all consuming, and I've got to be a really driven, working 24/7 kind of person that can be quite ruthless and make all these really hard hitting decisions. And I just kept thinking, I'm not that person, actually. I'm a people focused, caring, thoughtful person, and I want to take my time to do things and to deliver a good service to people. And I couldn't quite work out how that would fit with running my own business. And that is something that I think just comes over time, of just believing in what you can deliver, believing in the product
mm,
or the service that you have, and then just getting out there and giving it a go. And you will then start to build your own relationships with your clients, with your customers, whoever you are dealing with.
mm,
It's taking it day by day, relationship by relationship, and over that time you start to get to know yourself in a different way, and you present yourself in a way that then becomes more authentic, because
mm.
it's your name, it's your product, it's your service, and you believe in it. You're no longer representing a company, you're representing yourself.
Mm.
So it's so much easier to be authentic. It's just a case of practicing it.
Yeah, no, and that's absolutely right on that, because it's, there's so many things that are eye pleasing, or you hear this, and until you sort of sit down, and this is another thing about all the networking and everything, because it's important to also have those authentic people within your community, because they say it as it is, because sometimes it's all the glamorous stuff, and you don't hear anything about what goes wrong, or how hard it is and how difficult it is. And it's about getting that authenticity out there and helping other people. So I know that being a mom is so important, super important to you. And it hasn't been an easy journey, because obviously a lot of moms that I speak to will talk about having that lack of support from like extended family and stuff like that. But you certainly seem to have made it work. Obviously you've had the support of your husband and your daughter as well. How do you feel, she's getting on, in terms of when she looks at you? Do you feel she's inspired, or, what does she pick up from that, from mum?
Yeah, that's a great question. Yeah, I'm biased, but my daughter is just the most amazing human. She just is an amazing human. She is so sorted and switched on and balanced in a way that I don't think I ever was at that age. I read somewhere ages ago, and I can't remember where I read it, but it really chimed with me that it was something along the lines of we are the sandwich generation.
Mm,
And that means that we have come from we are expected now to be very switched on and very knowledgeable about emotional health, mental health, neurodiversity. There's podcasts, there's books we can read, there's TV programs. We're being taught all the time now about our emotional health and how to talk to each other and how to raise our kids. There's so many books out there you can read now about parenting. My parents were of a generation where there was none of that.
mm,
There was just none of that. And we didn't talk about anything. It was never discussed on TV. We didn't have social media then for people to learn from each other in terms of how to parent and how to communicate really well and really effectively. So I think we are a generation that haven't had it, we haven't been shown it by our parents of how to
mm,
parent really well. And that was certainly my experience. Both of my parents were emotionally quite unavailable.
mm,
And my mum suffered from depression for many years
mm,
and really withdrew from the family. So I know an awful lot of the mental health issues that I've had throughout my life have stemmed from that, and
mm.
I have been so determined to break that cycle.
Yeah.
I can remember my mum saying to me when I was a kid, and she had a difficult upbringing, but she said to me, "My mum never showed me any love, so you can't expect me to know how to love you."
Mm,
That's what she said to me. And I didn't agree with it then. And
mm,
I don't agree with it now, because the minute my daughter was born, I had nothing but love for her. And that's never changed and it never will change. And I was really determined to break that cycle, but I didn't necessarily have the tools to do it.
mm,
And I've just learned I see it as a job that I have to do, and I have to do well, because it's just too important not to. So I've read books and I've listened to podcasts, and I do as much as I can to be the best parent that I can, because it's not all instinctive and you don't necessarily always know all the answers. And I've learned so much along the way. Um, and so I have a brilliant relationship with my daughter. She
mm,
says I'm her best friend. I know she tells me, she's really open with me and we talk. But what I'm trying to do is give her the tools so that when she's ready to go out into the world, she's an independent,
mm,
thinking woman who can make her own decisions, who knows herself, who knows her boundaries, who knows what she loves, who knows what she doesn't love. And she will always have the support of her family, but I don't want her to be dependent on me. I want her to be self-sufficient and have that confidence in herself, that she knows herself well enough to be able to just go out in the world. And she's 16 now, and she's getting there. She's an athlete. She's had to learn a lot of really tough lessons through being on the track, and how competitive that is, and how there are so many emotional ups and downs, and you have to pick yourself up. And I'm in awe of her. She's just an amazing young woman, and I'm so proud of her. And I know it was a motivator for me when I started my businesses,
mm,
because I I wanted to show her that you can reinvent yourself
yeah.
and that you can always keep moving forward. I wanted her to be proud of me and what is achievable. And she gets involved in my glassmaking business as well. And so she can see what you can do,
Yeah.
from a standing start. She's been there with me through all of that. Um, so hopefully I've been a positive role model for her. But above anything else, it's about me. I I don't think it's selfish for a mum to find her own happiness.
Mm,
Having grown up with a mum who was very unhappy and didn't really do very much to help herself. She was definitely a person who it was everybody else's fault, and she was a victim of her life. Um, I know the damage that can do, so I think we all have a duty. It's
mm,
not selfish to want to find your own happiness and your own fulfillment, whether that's in a career or whether it's hobbies or whatever it is doing, be a happy mum. Because if you're a happy mum, it doesn't matter how tired or stressed or how time poor you are,
Mhm.
if you are happy and you have love in your heart, then you're going to give that to your kids. And that's, I think, all you need, because kids want to be around happy people, I think.
No, that's really true. And you know, she's got the best role model. And it's interesting how you've picked up, you know, on the various things from your own upbringing and decided to change. And I think we all have that choice. We have a choice to change. You don't have to follow the same footsteps and follow the same thing. And also because she's involved in you know, various things. I was an athlete myself, and I know how much discipline that takes and how much discipline it brings. But it also teaches you loads of life lessons, to not just expect something, because things can go in different ways and you work so hard. It's not easy. So it's, again, it's still instilling the whole, I think she'll still have the right tools to go out and do it. And like you said, you know, which is also important for my own family, the communication and being able, you know, all my kids can come and talk to me. We can all sit there and talk about whatever. And that is, so you can't put a price on that, because you know what's happening. You can give guidance, you can talk about things, or just make them see things in a different perspective, which lacks in some situations, and it's hard.
Yeah, it really is. And I think that you're so right. But that whole communication thing, I've realized, is about validating their emotions. I can remember when I was a kid, if I would have a little falling out with a friend and I would take that to my mum, she'd be so dismissive and just, oh, you'll be fine again in a couple of days' time. Don't worry about it. Well, yes, you probably would be fine in a couple of days' time. But what that's done is that's completely shut down your feelings about that. And at that moment in time, even though it's not a big deal in the grand scheme of things, when you are 10 years old and your friendship group is falling apart, it's a big deal. It's the end of the world for you. And I've always tried really hard with my daughter, no matter what she's been going through, to care about it as much as she does in that moment, because that validates her feelings. And I can say to her, I can understand that's really upsetting for you. And then you talk about how you're going to get past it, because I know as an adult that it is a small thing and she is going to get past it, but she needs to learn that her own way. If I just shut it down, she doesn't get to explore her feelings about it. And she's got to explore her feelings about it so that she can work out how she's going to navigate it, what she's going to do about it. And that goes for anything that young people have to face, whether it's exams, friends, the athletics, whether it's starting their first part-time job, or whether it's boyfriends, girlfriends, whatever it is. You've got to be allowed to explore your own feelings about it. Otherwise, you don't know how you feel. And I grew up not knowing how I felt about things, because I wasn't allowed to express how I felt about things. And
Mm,
that's really disabling when you then go into adult life.
yeah, it's
So the time you have with your children is to allow them, validate their feelings, even if you don't agree with them. Why do you feel that way? You know,
yeah.
just let them explore it and work out for themselves when they've overreacted or underreacted or got it right or got it wrong. But let them learn for themselves. It's a journey you've got to go through if you want to be a healthy, self-aware person.
Mm. No, that's so right. It's a very, very valid points that you've raised on there. And it's very easy though, I think, to overlook some of the things. But you know, going back to a point that you mentioned earlier again, it's all about your self-care as well. Because like you said, if you're not happy, you're not gonna be your best around anybody really, you know, your family or anybody else that's out there. So it's very, very important with the self-care side of things, which you know you seem to have taken seriously, and you're doing things towards that. You're not just waiting for it to miraculously happen, which is a great thing. So in terms of obviously your HR consultancy and the glass, you know, what's coming up? Anything exciting?
Well, I'm kind of expanding a little bit with my HR work. I have I've started to move into personality profiling, which I've done a lot of over the years, again in corporate life, but I've now got myself accredited so that I can run disc profiling, and it's fascinating. It's all about our preferences in terms of how we like to communicate, how we like to work,
Mm.
what pace we like to work out, whether you move towards people naturally or whether you move towards tasks naturally. Um, so it's great to support communication in the workplace and get people empathetic to how their teammates like to work as well, because we're all very different. Yeah, I've kind of delved into that, and that's really exciting because that will take me hopefully to a new audience,
Right.
not just the clients I'm working with. There's some bigger organizations that I'd like to do that work with where they've got bigger teams, and communication is just so important. Um, with my glass work, I'm coming into a busier time now. There's all across the country is a thing called open studios,
Mm.
where artists either come together in small collectives or they open up their home studios. And it's done kind of region to region across the year. But you get to go and see people's artwork and buy it and talk to them about how they make. So I'm with a really amazing collective of people that I've been with for the last 3 years. So Warwickshire Open Studios is across 3 weekends in June. So
Right.
I will be there selling my glass with 18 other artists who are just gorgeous people and so talented. They're absolutely brilliant. It's my favorite thing to do each year. I just love it.
Mm.
Um, and the people that we get coming are really interested in art, so they really want to talk to you about your process and what you've done, and it's just a real joy. So I've got that coming up as well, which I'm looking forward to.
Oh, fantastic. What I'll do is when your episode goes live, I'll have some links to obviously your glass side and your HR side so people know where to find you. But thank you so much. It's been an absolute pleasure having you on the show today.
Thank you so much for having me, Esther. I'm in awe of you and your talent, and yes, you have a much bigger family than I do, so I think you're amazing for everything you do. So yeah, it's been lovely to talk to you today. Thank you for having me.
No, you're welcome. Thank you very much.